All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the State Control Centre here on Boxing Day for 2024. Can I welcome also Deputy Premier Ben Carroll and Vicky Ward, Minister for Emergency Services and Minister for Natural Disaster Recovery, and I'm also joined by Alex from Expression Australia. Today's weather is making it extremely difficult for firefighters across the state. Every region, except for East Gippsland, has an extreme fire danger rating system, and the entire state has the total fire ban in place. Today's temperatures in the north are expected to be between 38 degrees and 42 degrees, so extremely hot conditions, and in the south up to 40 degrees. We have strong gustily northerly winds at the moment, and that's pushing some of the fire south at the Grampians, and it's also making it difficult for any new starts that occur across the state, which we've had a number of already. This will be followed by a change in wind conditions that will move across to the southwest, or more westerly and southwesterly, which again make it really problematic for firefighters with any of those existing fires. We have 4 existing fires at the moment that we are really concerned about. That is the Grampians, the Gerties near Lang Lang, Bullingarook fire near Gisborne, and also the Creswick fire. So they have the potential in those winds to take off again, which will be difficult for firefighters to hold. The Grampians fire has now burnt around 55,000 hectares. We know there's considerable environmental damage in the Grampians, but also into some of the interface there with private lands. We have fence damages, we have stock losses. We also believe some outbuildings and sheds have been damaged from the fires. We have no reports as yet of residential homes, but there are many residential homes in the bush areas on the edges of the Grampians. So I wouldn't be surprised at some point if we do have residential losses. But firefighters, I can say, are doing everything possible to protect life and protect property in what they're doing. We have 3 relief centres open at the moment: Ararat, Stawell and Hamilton. So they are there for residents that are displaced and that have left their homes. As I've said regularly, we have done all we can do to prepare for this current spike day and tomorrow. Tomorrow will also be challenging because those westerlies will continue through the afternoon, evening and into tomorrow. So there'll still be some tricky fire conditions. But can I thank the community? They have absolutely listened to the messages that we've been giving over the last few days. They are leaving their homes and they're leaving them early. They're going to stay with friends and family. Some of them are in relief centres, but clearly the messaging back to us here at the State Control Centre is that the community is listening to the messages that we are providing. They are leaving, and they are leaving early. There are multiple Watch and Act and advice messages on the Vic Emergency app at the moment. They continue to change as the fire conditions and the environment changes. So please download the Vic Emergency app if you don't have it already. Set up your watch zone. If you have it already, continue to monitor the app, but don't just rely on one source of information. Please stay tuned to your local broadcasters and know the environment around you. If you don't need to drive through those areas, please do not drive through the areas. Please avoid trouble where you absolutely can. And in closing, I would just like to also thank our volunteers and our firefighters right across the state. They do an amazing job in protecting the community and doing everything they can to support community in their time of need. Our volunteers are well supported though as well by their families. So many volunteers were out on the fire grounds yesterday when their families are having Christmas together. They miss the Christmas because they are prioritising the community over their own time with their families, so thanks to them. Thanks to the family members that support them to go, and thanks to any employers that actually support them to volunteer as well. And finally, I would also like to thank our interstate colleagues that have come down to support our firefighting efforts here in Victoria. Many firefighters from across the country have come to support us in Victoria, in incident management teams and also on the ground. So thanks very much, and I'll now hand across to Deputy Premier Ben Carroll.
Thank you, Rick. Can I also begin with a thank you? Thank you to all Victorians that have been heeding the warnings and following the advice. Thank you to our volunteers, our firefighters, our SES personnel. While we've been spending time with family, they have been spending time away from their families, keeping each and every one of us safe. They do represent the best of us, but we are not through this at all. Dangerous fire conditions are forming today and will go right through to Saturday. The conditions formed today will push through to Saturday as well as tomorrow. We must continue to follow the advice. The current situation is that today's fire danger ratings are extreme across the whole state, except for Gippsland, which is rated high. Total fire ban has been declared right across Victoria. The advice is very clear: don't light fires. Conditions are especially dangerous for people in areas where bushfires have already been burning. As we've repeatedly said, the fire we are most worried about is the fire we do not know of. We think of everyone at this time as they've had to leave their homes during the Christmas period. We know this is a challenging time for all communities, and all communities will be supported through this period. We want to thank everyone that has been following the advice and will continue to follow the advice in coming days. Always be aware that new fires can start anywhere and become dangerous very quickly, especially when there are winds at 90 to 100 kilometres. It's more important for everyone to be aware of their surroundings, to download the Emergency Services app and make sure that notifications are switched on and you are getting the alerts. Please also tune into the Emergency Services broadcaster. If you live, work or holidaying in these areas, you must have an action and a bushfire survival plan in place. Leaving early is the only way to guarantee the safety of you, your loved ones and your family. We need people to take these warnings seriously. Deciding against the advice of our emergency services could just be the last decision you make. I do want to give an update on payments and support, and I am joined here by the Emergency Services Minister, Vicky Ward, who's been working very closely with her federal counterpart, Jenny McAllister, over the week. Today we can announce the Australian Victorian Government Disaster Assistance is now available for communities impacted by the fires. The assistance activated today will ensure communities can access essential supplies and accommodation in their time of need. We will continue to work hand in hand with the federal government to ensure all communities who are impacted can get back on their feet as soon as possible. A final reminder, I'd like to again thank every single Victorian who's been pitching in and supporting their communities, from emergency workers to charities, volunteers and community members who have turned out to lend a hand for people in a time of need. A final reminder to all Victorians, please follow the instructions given to you through Vic Emergency, on the roadsides or emergency services workers, wherever they are. The single biggest way we can thank them for their service is staying up to date with the advice and following the advice. Download the app, make sure notifications are switched on, have your fire plan ready. By heeding the warnings, you're helping to make sure everyone's job is that little bit easier during what is a very challenging time right across our state. Thank you. And we can open it up for any questions.
How much can people access for that disaster relief?
So the disaster relief funding comes through a national agreement that we've got with the national government, and I want to thank Jenny McAllister for coming down to Ararat, or going over to Ararat with me on Christmas Eve to have a look at what was happening in Ararat and the tremendous support that is being done there by those volunteers, by those firefighting workers, everybody on the ground who is doing everything they can to help keep themselves safe and support that work in safety. So this funding is for 4 local government areas. They are able to be reimbursed under this funding agreement for expenses that they incur relating to supporting people at the relief centres, accommodation, ongoing financial advice further down the track, as well as psychological advice and support. So this is the Ararat Council, the Southern Grampians, the Northern Grampians and the Macedon Shire. They will all be able to seek reimbursement from the state government, which will be funding jointly shared by the national government as well as Victoria.
When it comes to livestock, did you say there were some losses?
We believe there are some livestock losses
And whereabouts in the state?
near the Grampians fire, resulting from the Grampians fire.
And is there a specific fire that is, I guess, more problematic than others at the moment, and they're really struggling to get under control?
Well, there's 2 parts to that. The first, the Grampians fire, is a significant fire and is likely to burn for weeks. 55,000 hectares of an area of well over 100,000 hectares, very difficult terrain, very dry in there. The conditions are such that will be extremely difficult to put out. So the primary focus there at the moment is protecting assets and life and property external to the Grampians. most people have left there, but focusing on the assets. The other three fires that I mentioned are challenging with these winds, holding them contained within those areas, but also the fires that we don't know about. So any new starts will be problematic for one main reason, and that is we don't know where it is. It takes off in a southerly direction with strong northerlies, and the longer that fire goes before the change of winds, when the wind changes to the west, we've got a very long fire front that's going to move in a different direction. So we're really focused on new starts as well. And the team out here and on the ground are ready and have the capabilities they need to respond really quickly, and that first attack is vital to then stop that fire before it spreads too quickly. And we've had some of those already, and they've managed to get them under control.
When it comes to forces on the ground, I assume there's been a lot of resources pulled into these areas. Are you confident, though, that if a fire does start up in another part of the state, there will be enough resources there?
We've planned for fires right across the state because the entire state is in total fire ban today, and all of the regions except for Far East Gippsland is in extreme. So therefore, we have incident management teams, regional control teams and firefighters on the ground in each region. So I am confident we have the resources we need, but as the fires come and continue to move, we do prioritise, as we do with aviation assets. But we must be mindful that even the aircraft, there are certain conditions and they can't fly. So if the winds are too extreme, there's too much smoke, even heat sometimes can actually keep the aircraft on the ground. They are an excellent asset in support of the on-the-ground people, but sometimes we don't get to use them, so our planning also involves firefighting without aircraft.
Has that been the case this morning, that you've had to, I guess, hold some aircraft from
Not as yet.
Okay.
You've said that it's the worst fire danger since the Black Summer bushfires. How concerned are you that it's going to escalate to those extreme conditions that we did see back in 2019?
Yeah, well, I mean, it only needs one very bad day to be a very bad summer, and so we can do all we can. There are certain things we can't control, and that's the weather. So what we do is we assess all of the risks. At the end of the day, we do what we can, we respond how we can, and a little bit of luck's got to go your own way as well. It's really hard to answer.
Do you think we're better prepared now than we were back in 2019, and do you think people as well are better prepared than they may have been 5 years ago?
I've been around a little while. I saw Black Saturday, I saw 2019, 2020, and there is no doubt in my mind the maturing of the system, particularly around information, warnings and alerts, the infrastructure, the assets, the fire trucks, they are all far better than they were back then. The ongoing maturing of arrangements, exercising, training continues. We are better than we were then. 2019, 2020 were better than we were in 2009. There is no doubt at all that the messaging and warnings from the 2019-2020 fires helped save lives. And we even saw that earlier this season with Pomona. 45, 46 homes were lost to the fires, not a single life lost, thankfully. So people do listen more, to answer your question. People do listen more to the messaging and they do respond more. So we are most thankful for that because it makes our job that much easier.
Commissioner, can you tell us the number of firefighters and personnel that are currently on ground in the 4 regions that you mentioned before?
Well, there's about 600 firefighters on the ground at the Grampians. The rest of the state, I don't have those numbers, I'm sorry. We have all these people on availability, ready to go, pages. I know CFA has around 35,000 volunteers. You know, for the most part, they are ready, willing and able to respond.
Do you have enough of how many sheds or, I guess, outhouses that have?
No, not at this stage. The primary focus at the moment is protecting the community. The fires went through that area and ran southeast of the Grampians last night, and today has run. So all the assets at the moment are focused on protecting community, protecting assets. In time, we'll be able to get assessment teams into areas to actually fully understand the extent of any damage that's in there.
And have there been any injuries when it comes to firefighters?
Not that's been reported yet, thankfully. And there was a really good state control team, regional control team meeting today, and a strong focus on safety of our first responders. We can't help the community if we're injured ourselves, so it is really paramount that we're doing all we can to protect our people so that they are available to protect the community.
Do you have an update on the number of interstate personnel across the state?
We have around 100 from interstate, Queensland, Tasmania and New South Wales. We may have some from South Australia, I think. We continue to assess our needs, and which we'll do throughout the day today and into tomorrow.
And just on Bullungarook, how are conditions likely to play out there this afternoon into the evening?
Well, that again is at risk. Particularly as those westerlies come through, the very strong westerlies that come through, we could see gusts of up to 80 to 100 kilometres an hour. So that can reignite or have embers leave that fire ground and then go ahead of the ground. So we're very concerned with that. On the Vic Emergency app, we've provided some maps of those 4 fires and the potential spread area to warn the community, saying if you're in that area, here is the potential spread of those fires, and if you're in there, please leave and leave early.
Those homes that could be at risk, whereabouts exactly are those located?
Any area that is in amongst the edges of those current fires at the moment.
So all 4 fires, there could be homes at risk along that.
Once they run, yeah. Once the fires take off, all homes in those areas are at risk. We will do all we can to protect all of those homes. We just don't want people in them. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.